Well, hey, middle school, happy Monday to you. And I do want to say happy Monday because I think, we are further into this. I think the end is closer than we maybe think. And so if you have any projects you need to get done, I would be getting those done because before you know it, we're going to be back into a regular routine and you won't have time to do all that extra. Clean out those closets, read those books, whatever it is, whatever project you want to get done. Let's get it done. And before you know it, we'll be back together and get to enjoy time together. So today I want to share the Devo with you for April 20th. And it is on grace, which is kind of a big word. I'm sure you hear it all the time. And so I just want to define it because it is has huge significance in our Christian faith. But grace is unmerited favor from God. In other words, unearned favor from God. And what that means is that it's by God's grace that we get what we don't deserve. We get heaven. We get relationship with Him, even though as humans we're sinful. By His grace, He invites us through Jesus, through what Jesus did for us to forgive us of our sins on the cross. He paid for those. Then we get to come back into relationship with God. And He wanted that. I mean, He sent His Son to do that. He was not okay with being separated from us. And so by His grace, there's nothing we can do to earn it. He gives us back, or He gives us this opportunity to be back in relationship with Him through Christ. So that's what grace is. And it's by His mercy that He does this. And mercy is different from grace in this. Mercy is not getting what we do deserve. So grace is getting something we don't deserve. We get heaven, we're back in relationship with God even though we're sinful. And mercy is not getting the punishment that we deserve for our sins. Jesus took that. So these are big words in our faith, and they're amazing. It's awesome that God has grace and mercy for us. And that's what today's Devo is about. It's about, so what do we do with this grace? In response to this grace, write this down. If you're taking notes, if you write this down, Romans 6, 1 through 14. Again, Romans 6, 1 through 14. That's kind of your homework for you to go and study later. Sorry, there's Solo's tail in the background. And you can go and study that later. And that's talking about, Paul is saying, there was this question, well, since we have grace, since we're going to be forgiven, can't we just do whatever we want then? And he's like, by no means should you just go do whatever and then expect or like take advantage of. That's like manipulating God. That's like using God. And we don't want to use God. We want to receive the gifts He's given us and then respond back in a way that says we're thankful, that says that we know what a gift it is. Like, oh my gosh, God, I cannot believe that you don't punish me for my sin. I cannot believe that you took the sin upon yourself on Jesus. And so Paul is talking to the Romans about, by no means do you then take the fact that you're forgiven you don't use that as a license to sin more. That's silly, and that's not being appreciative. And that means maybe you didn't really receive God's grace, that you're just saying that you know about it and you're using Him. Because if we're using Him, then that's not the kind of relationship that shows respect, like the house rules. Give respect, get respect. So we want to give respect and awe and honor to God for this grace He's offered us. And so what do you do with grace? What do you do since and Jesus on the cross paid for our past sins, our present sins, and our future sins. So we're not going to be perfect in this world. We're still going to sin. But what Paul was saying to the Romans is like, you don't intentionally go, oh, well, I know God will forgive me, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this. That's not a heart. That's a heart that is living still for yourself. And when we receive God's grace and we're appreciative and we respond by being in awe of Him and wanting to know Him more, then instead of living for ourselves, we begin to live for Him. And it's kind of like this, and within His guidelines or His boundaries He gives us. And He doesn't give us boundaries or guidelines or rules to make our life miserable. He gives them so that we have a fuller life and more freedom. It sounds counterproductive that we would stay within a boundary that God gives us and have more freedom than if we went on the outside and and just live for ourselves. But that's the deal, is like if we go on the outside and just do whatever we want, that is living for ourselves, and that's going to bring destruction. And kind of think about it like this. Hey, Solo, come back over here for a second. Will you come sit up here with me? Come here. Come here. Sit up here with me for a minute so they can see you. Come here. She is not obeying. Come here. Come here. There. Okay, turn around and say hi. Come here. So over here. Okay, she is not very obedient. She's kind of like us with God. We don't always listen, right? But I was thinking of an example about this grace thing and boundaries. Like if Solo goes outside and not on her leash or whatever, and she just runs away, it seems like she's got ultimate freedom, right? Like to run to the next neighborhood or across the highway or whatever. And it seems like, oh, wow, how free that is and how awesome for that dog. But is it really? Because she could get hit by a car. She could get, at nighttime, we've seen some wild animals around. Like she could get in a fight with, an animal in the woods and get hurt and we wouldn't even know it, right? Or she could get in a fight with another dog. So she goes off and just does her own thing. She leaves the protection that we've set up for her because we love her and we care for her and we want her to be safe and we want her to have the fullest life that this dog can have. Do you see? Like she doesn't take advantage of us and run off and live for herself. She stays within our protections that we've set up. And that's that's kind of like our thing with God, is like he gives us guidelines and boundaries to live by so that we have a full life. Not when I say safe, I don't just mean that you don't ever have adventure or fun, but you're protected and you walk and you have all these freedoms within this boundary that God has set up so that you can have more freedom and more full life by walking with him and being obedient to him. So grace doesn't make it okay for you to live for you. No, grace frees you to experience the joy of living for the one greater than you. So let's live not for ourselves and selfishly like our human heart wants to, but let's appreciate the grace that God has given us and the mercy he's granted us and live for him instead of for ourselves. And there's incredible freedom in that. And again, your further study, if you want to spend some time today, is Romans 6, 1-14. Have a great rest of your Monday.